My name is Liz Sallows. My presentation is the Grief of Leaving. The aspects here are the losses that experienced by those with left the cult. Oh, there we go. So who am I? How dare I actually come up here and speak? Doesn't that sound like cult speak? I'm a cult survivor. So I was in an independent fundamentalist cult for about 20 years. Had children when I went in, but also bore some children when I was there. Eventually, we closed the cult down. Some of the other cult members and I and the perpetrator ended up in prison for a number of years, which was quite lovely. I'm also the third generation of a high demand religion. So how did I get involved in a cult? I was set up by the requirements of the high demand. So people wonder, how do you get into it? Oftentimes it's because of the foundational stuff. And how do you get into it as an adult? Oftentimes it's because of the foundation requirements that are put on you post that. I'm also a thanatologist. So thanatology is the study of grief and bereavement. I lost my husband in the early 2000s and found the study of grief and bereavement really fascinating. And how can I help other widows with young children? I was 39 when my husband died. And so found this program called thanatology, which was quite fascinating. In the process of that, I also discovered a fascination with trauma. So I have certifications in traumatology. And that has led me to a career as a psychotherapist who specializes in grief and trauma, particularly religious trauma, but also all other kinds of trauma. So we hear this word trauma. And what does that actually mean? Well, it means that something that came along that was too much, too fast, is what trauma is, basically. And there are all kinds of trauma. Trauma is an umbrella. We have religious trauma, we have cultic trauma, we have emotional trauma, we have relational trauma, we have violence trauma, we have emotional, social. We also have betrayal trauma. We have institutional trauma, which is a form of betrayal trauma. The institutional trauma, we have spiritual trauma, gender trauma, race trauma, and that's just sort of the start. So when we hear the word trauma, please recognize that it's messy. The effects on the system, on the body, the mind and the body are often similar, it doesn't matter what kind of trauma it is. One of the things that there are, again, numerous different kinds of trauma that we deal with as cult survivors. So we can go and talk to trauma therapists who will then take it all apart. So financial trauma is one of the big ones, sexual trauma, et cetera, et cetera. So please note, I realize there's way more to this subject than we have time to chat about today. If there's anything that comes up for you that might be beneficial to my work or anything that you find objectionable, please feel free to come and chat with me after the session or send me an email. I'd be happy to have a conversation. My email will be on the last slide. Right? So why does any of this matter? It does matter, but why? Because people will come to say, I got out, I'm happy, I'm done, I don't need to think about it anymore. Well, we have to think about those who have left, because oftentimes there are emotions and things that they have no idea what they're talking about. They have not experienced, not been allowed to experience. Then there are lots of us who are helping those who have left cults. We need to recognize that grief is big. Grief is a generally understood emotion anyway, whether you're from a cult or a high demand organization or just general population. Grief is not well understood to start with. Grief is also seldom acknowledged in cultic organizations. When my husband was killed in a car accident at the age of 45, we, as his wife and children, who were left, well, isn't he in a better place? And aren't we happy that he's not hurting anymore? And all of that. And my prayers and thoughts go with you. And I say now to people, well, when I've got my 7-year-old on my lap at 2 o'clock in the morning because she misses her daddy, what are your prayers and your thoughts going to do for me? It's just very seldom acknowledged. Whether it's a cult or in high demand organizations, grief is seldom because you have a positive. And then it matters because we need to have a greater understanding of the depths of others' experiences. We need to know what others have come through. That's how we can better help people. So I'm looking at this from the perspective of 4 areas. There will be other areas, and I know that this is just to keep this into a 45-minute time frame. Grief of what you left behind when you left the cult. The grief of what you did not have while you were in the cult. The grief of what you did not do while you were in the cult. And the grief of what you did do while you were in the cult. So we're going to look at each one of them. I've got some examples of each of them. There are many more, believe me. Okay, so what was left behind when you left the cult? You left behind friend relationships. Those friend relationships that were strong and wonderful and that kept you going. Sometimes those friend relationships knew what you were going through in your desire to leave the cult. Sometimes those friend relationships broke down because they were then required to go and talk to the leadership about what was going on with you. They were the spies. So, but these people were true, honest to goodness friends. So you end up leaving those behind. You often also leave the respect of those behind because you are going from an area, from a group of people that knew you and loved you and respected you for who you are. And then you're then out here where nobody knows who you are. You're just a person on the street and there's not that respect anymore. So that can be really difficult for some. A community of like-minded people. Here is this community of people who supported you, who had believed the same things as you did, who had a communication that you understood each other. You had been through this kind of a trauma bonding because you had been through things together that ended up, you just knew who each other was, you knew how to talk to each other. Next, we leave behind family relationships. We often end up leaving behind people when we leave. And this goes along with the friend relationships. The family relationships are often closer and a harder bond to break. A single person can leave more readily than someone who may end up leaving their family behind. And then at times as well, those family relationships, you are not allowed to connect with them again afterwards, because then you might contaminate them. You also leave behind an identity. Had an identity in the cult. You knew who you were, everybody else knew who you were, and you had a particular skill or a particular capability, and that is what you were known for. Okay? And it's gone. Because again, you're outside the cult, nobody knows who you are. And then there's the knowledge that you are right. You had the answer. You knew that what you said was right because you had the answer to solve all of everybody's problems. You had confidence in that. And now doubts have crept in and you may not be as certain about those beliefs as you once were. This is also something that comes along over time. Because just because you've left the cult doesn't necessarily mean that you change all of your beliefs right away. I honestly believe this is one of the things that happened during the pandemic because all of a sudden a number of people who had left a cult but were sort of still attending church, etc., or some sort of an organization, and all of a sudden in the pandemic they couldn't, and suddenly they're realizing that, oh, I actually don't need that to function as an amazing human being. So one good thing that came out of the pandemic. And then lastly, in this particular area, we knew the future. We knew what was going to happen. We knew who we were going to talk to. We knew where we were going to be on the days that we were supposed to be meeting. We knew what we were supposed to be believing. We knew what our friends were going to believe, et cetera, et cetera. You may even have known where you were going to be after you died. And being able to hang on to that is pretty important for an awful lot of cult survivors. So these are things that you had in the cult that you end up leaving behind. Okay? What you did not have while you were in the cult. I'm sure there's lots of people here that can think of many of them. Some of them might include learning good decision-making skills. It's really hard to learn how to make decisions unless if you don't have the opportunity to make good decision skills. With children, we say, do you want the red one or the blue one? We don't say just pick one. And that is teaching a 3-year-old how to make good decision-making skills. Do you want this one or do you want this one? But in the cult, you are told you have to wear this, you have to do this, you have to eat this, you have to do this, etc. So we don't learn good decision-making skills. And then as parents, we often don't teach our children how to make good decisions, how to develop good decisions. So we also don't learn good communication skills because we don't have to. Cults are often isolated, even if we are not isolated in the aspect of the children go to the public school, etc. They are often a group unto themselves. They're not communicating with everybody on the playground. There's a whole bunch of social skills that we learn every day when we're on the playground that children from cult second gens don't get. We also are told that if we're not able to communicate with someone outside the cult, well, they're the ones that are in the problem. Okay, so we don't learn good communication skills, and we also don't learn to trust ourselves. Because we don't have those good skills, haven't had that good skill building, and then we are also told that our inside, our gut feelings are wrong because we have to listen to them. We have to. So we don't learn to trust ourselves and our gut instincts and our somatic responses to what's going on. When someone touches us inappropriately and we go, ooh, we're told that that's wrong because we're supposed to allow that. So we don't learn to trust ourselves at all. We also don't have freedom. We don't have freedom to think, to feel, to learn, to grow, to be yourself. We don't have those because we always have to think what is going to happen if I think this. We also have to think, oh, what's the leader going to think about this? Yeah. At one point, my husband and I were doing some renovations in our house. Our leader had no experience in architecture, building, or anything like that, but we had to put him with our house plans and get his approval. What did he care? But it was a control aspect. So the ability to think, to grow, to be yourself, to decide what decor you want, to decide whether you wanted to have a pet or not, all of those kinds of things. Okay. You also don't have an opportunity to develop a personal moral code. When you are told this is right and this is wrong, you don't get to choose for yourself what is right or what is wrong for you. If we're told that sex is wrong until you get married, well, then there's a lack of exploration, there's a lack of understanding that sex can actually be a good thing. And it's really hard to change from sex is wrong, say I do, sex is right. So all of those kinds of things. Our decisions about ourselves, what clothes do we like to wear? Why do we like to wear those clothes? All of this kind of thing, our own moral code. We also don't get to have formal educational opportunities, many of us. I'm a bit of a pot stirrer, and when my time in the cult was coming to the end, and I decided I wanted to stir the pot a little bit, I said to the leader of the cult that I was thinking about going back to university and taking another degree, and I got preached on for 3 weeks, every Sunday, every Wednesday, all services. So those kind of formal educational opportunities, because then people learn that there are other ways to be out there aside from it's a control issue, it's a financial control issue, etc. So there's many aspects of that formal educational opportunity. And then lastly here, we don't get help from outside the organization. Child protection agencies, police, firefighters, any organization that issues a certification, that you could be accountable to. This is one of the areas where the independent fundamentalists in North America, they have these independent fundamental Baptist churches where the pastor is not accountable to anyone. And if the other pastors see something that's wrong, they won't do anything because, oh, well, we're independent, we can't talk about that. So anything that was required as being some sort of someone that would tell you you're right type of thing is also not looked upon as help. And they're often labeled as terrifying, especially to the women and children, because they don't want the women saying, okay, I've had enough, I'm leaving, I'm going to go to the police, I'm going to go to the child protection agencies, et cetera, et cetera. So I have been helping some post-cult survivors, and the aspect of going to the police for help, they can't even conceive of what it is, because it's just not able to be done. So, okay. What you did while you were in the cult, what did you do? Recruitment of others to the cause. This one actually has been mentioned by a couple of people in conversations this week. I am so embarrassed about the people that I have brought into that organization, and I'm so upset with it. So recruitment is difficult. You wonder, what you were told what to do, you were told how to do it, and now they may still be in, or they may have been really, really badly hurt. So these are some things that we did. And then there's also the said and did things you knew were not appropriate. Sexist comments, racist comments, comments that were just unkind. You ended up doing them so that you were a part of the group, or you didn't say anything against them because otherwise you were not a part of the group any longer. So you said and did things sometimes that were racist, there were all kinds of things. The development of the fear of authority, this one, oops. There we go. Okay, development of the fear of authority ties in with what we were taught, to be afraid of those. And the development of the fear of authority is a big one. When we closed the cult down that I was in, the aspect of having someone come and talk to me about my children from the Child Protection Agency in the city, I couldn't sleep. I was terrified that they were just going to come in and scoop up my kids. I had a plan where I was going to take the kids and move them away to another province because I was terrified that they were just going to take the children. And the one Child Protection Agency worker came to me and she looked at me and one of the other mothers and said, "We are not taking your children. Don't worry, we are not taking your children." So it was good on her part that she actually recognized that this is where we were coming from. But there were numerous nights where the mothers of the group couldn't sleep. And the other one that we did while we were in the cult was we lost time in just a regular church type of thing where Sunday morning services, Sunday evening services, Sunday afternoon choir practices, Monday night this, Tuesday night that, Wednesday night this. You don't have time to have a family. You don't have time to do the things and other former cult members have talked today about 14-hour work days, et cetera, et cetera. And you just lose so much time, sleep, et cetera, because you have to be preparing, you have to be travel time. I lived an hour away from the cult, which meant an hour of traveling and then an hour home again, et cetera, with small children. And it kind of disrupts a normal family life. So we've lost a lot of time to what was expected. And lost a lot of time to preparation because, of course, being the type of people we are, we want to do a really good job. And that uses up a lot of time for simple household things, looking after children, being able to have a job, etc. So lost time. And then the other one is you went along with what you were told. Sometimes this is one of the ones that, again, people who sleep over now. You went along with it, you just did it because in order to be a part of the group, you had to do what you were told. Otherwise, you're out of luck. So you went along with what you were told and you relied on the teachings of the group as correct. There was no, one of the reasons why I called Say No Internet is because they don't want you researching. So in the days before the internet, they didn't want you reading, they didn't want you getting educated, they didn't want you talking to people outside. To say, hey, did you know that you're being abused? Hey, did you know that this group is called cult? All of these kinds of things. So, and then there's the money spent or donated. I hesitate to figure out how much money I donated as tithes to the organization. Our cult leader lived on 100 acres way out in the country in a beautiful home. And he told us that he lived in abject poverty. Yeah. That was one of the sentences that kind of made my brain go. What did he say? So he told us that he lived in abject poverty was the term, like terrible poverty. Yeah. So the money spent or donated, the money put out for educational things to do within an educational cult, etc. The aspect of the amount of money. And then the us versus them thinking or the binary thinking. We are so often taught in cults, it's right or wrong, it's black or white, it's yes or no, it's male or female. Anything that is binary, we are taught that that is how it goes and how it has to be. And that follows along with whatever scriptures, whatever writings we're following. All right, so what did you not do? What didn't you get to do? We didn't get to have a career. And this isn't just for women. Oftentimes men were not allowed to have a career either. They were just told, get a job. Doesn't matter. The aspect of getting a career, to not spend money on education, that is often not approved by the group anyway. Oh, and you can learn anything you need to know by staying within the group because someone can teach you. When I said to my leader that I wanted to go back to university, and his comment was, oh, you can do that. You can learn anything you need. And I said, well, in order to go into nursing, I kind of need to take the courses and I kind of need to take the exam to fulfill the registered nurses organization. It was like, oh, yeah. It didn't work for me at that point. One of the other things we often don't do when we're in a high demand organization is develop financial stability and literacy. You're making minimum wage or very little amounts of money. Fathers are often taught, oh, just have a business. And the business is within the isolated group. And the aspect of budgeting, oh, well, you have to do the tithe. Don't worry about anything else. It all just falls together. I had someone tell me, oh, just write a check and everything will be fine. This aspect of financial stability and literacy. How do things work, like investments and dividends, and how do mortgages work and all of them is often not allowed to be learned. So the development of skills of autonomy. I am okay the way I am. I don't need to be validated by someone else. I am perfect and whole and complete the way I am and how I am and the decisions that I make. Okay. But usually that is not developed well. The strength in difficulty. This is one of the areas. What if I leave? What am I going to do? I won't have anybody to hold me up. It's easier to stay in than it is to be out there. It's scarier to be out there. I can stay in and I will have the support that I need in case something happens. Personal growth outside of the teachings of the cult. This one isn't in every cult, but I hear about it in various ways in people that I chat with. In my case, I wanted to go and learn how to do some form of art, and our leader and his wife were very much against this idea of going out and learning from someone else, someone outside the church, who could teach me something that I thought it had nothing to do with the cult, so therefore it wasn't worthwhile doing. Meeting others of diverse ethnicities, belief systems, and lifestyles. Once you are in that isolated bubble group, nobody can come in. Oh, but we have people here who are people of other colors. Okay, fine, but you would like to whitewash them. We have people of other gender orientations. Oh, but they're wrong, they have to leave. Or they're wrong, they have to change. That kind of thing. Someone can come in and say, I cook this kind of food. Oh, well, we don't eat that kind of food, so you can't be here, or you have to eat the way that we do. Those types of control. And then because we don't have the opportunity to meet people of diverse ethnicities, etc., we don't develop the life skills that come with having a wide range of people. We need to meet all kinds of people. One of the things I love about conferences, I get to meet all kinds of people from all kinds of places who have all kinds of experiences, and I'm really fascinated to hear the stories. It's probably why I'm a psychotherapist, because I like to hear stories. But when we're in that isolated bubble, we don't get to learn about how to talk with other people outside of the group. Okay, so those are my 4 areas. The next thing is, what can we do about this for ourselves and for others? We have to remember, this is not an extensive list. Not my one audio video one. This is not an extensive list. There are many other griefs that come along, big and small. Okay. And there is no one size fits all answer. So the things that have helped me and not my recovery may not help anyone else in their recovery. And this is a really, really important point because we don't have a checklist. You don't have 15 things on the list and then I'm going to be healed. That's not how it works. The other thing is, please take note, does the individual that you're trying to help or the group that you're trying to help, particularly individuals, do they truly want your help? Are they ready for that yet? Because you are ready to give them that help. Are they ready to take it? And then the other thing with regards to that is, do they want your help? Because one of the things that we are taught in a cult is that everybody wants to hear our message. And that's not true. So I may come along to someone and say, oh, I'm a cult survivor, I can help you. And they go, oh, don't want your help, don't like you for some reason. It's all that kind of thing. So we have to be really careful. Do they want your help? Do they want your help? Do they want your help right now? Or are they happy to say, you take your number, I'll call you when I'm ready? And are you okay with that? Really big one. Okay. So what else can we do? We can recognize the feelings that you're experiencing. Feelings are huge. We use this in my therapy practice, and especially with cult survivors, they kind of go, oh. So this is what we call a feelings wheel. So we have 6 in here: happy, sad, disgust, anger, fear, and surprise. And then it opens out to these ones. And then it opens out to these ones. And then we stop because that's the size of the pillow. But it can grow and grow and grow. And I will also say, grief isn't on here. Because grief is a totally separate entity. We can be sad and then we can grieve. So acknowledge, you have to recognize the feelings that you're experiencing and the wide range of feelings we're going to experience. And acknowledge this is tough. This is not I'm out, oh yay, everything's going to be wonderful. It's not. So we have to acknowledge that it's tough and that we are capable of dealing with it and doing what we need to do. Learn to rest. Because in the cult, you were not allowed to rest. You weren't allowed to rest physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, anything like that. And what rest means for you today, because it's going to be different every day. After walking around Barcelona for 5 days, my feet needed to rest. The rest of me didn't, but my feet needed to rest. So what does rest mean for me today? And it will be different for each person. Some people like to sleep 12 to 15 hours, and that's good for them, and that's what they need to recover. Other people need to get up and get at their day and do what they need to do, and that's their type of rest. Other people need a calm, quiet atmosphere around them at all times. Others, they like chaos, and that helps their brains to work. Give yourself permission to do things for you. How many people know their favorite kind of ice cream? Okay. That is a hard decision for an awful lot of people. When you go out for dinner, how do you figure out what you would like for dinner? Again, that's a really hard decision. What decision process did you make this morning to put the clothes on that you put on? A very hard decision because no one's telling you what to do. So give yourself permission to do things for you. You have probably been taught that it's selfish to do things for yourself. It really honestly isn't. As a young mom, I was always taught, you can't pour from an empty cup, et cetera, et cetera. And just recently I was looking at something online and someone was saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. That means we have to keep filling our own cup in order to pour out to others. And that's a really important thing that, again, is not allowed in the cult, often not allowed in the cult, because, well, you don't have time to fill your own cup. So give yourself permission to do things for yourself. Understand that you may have experienced some sort of moral injury. Moral injury happens when you go against what you believe in order to keep your position, in order to not be told that you're wrong, in order to feel safe. As a parent, I did some things that I knew were not on my moral code to raise my children because I had to stay okay and safe in the code. So that keeps me awake at night. My kids are wonderful, they're grown, they're adults, and they're doing very well. I still lie awake at night some nights thinking, oh my goodness, what did I do with children? But other times there are other forms of moral injury. Even the aspect of recruitment at times can be a form of moral injury. So understand that you may have experienced some form of moral injury. And this is where I think of Maya Angelou. I love Maya Angelou and her writings, and her statement is, do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. Because we have to remind ourselves that we were doing what we could, the best that we could within that cultic organization. Okay, this is where my grief stuff comes in, perform some mourning rituals for that time in your life. So there's a difference between grief and mourning. Grief is this feeling that we do, mourning are the rituals and the things that we do to help us through that grief. Some people will write letters. Some people will send those letters. Some people will burn them or bury them or just tear them up and just enjoy them instead of tearing them up, that type of thing. Others will do all kinds of, there's lists and lists of things. Throw things out that are reminders and throw them out with some sort of a ritual, some sort of a rite, or as hard as you want to into the garbage can. Buy new things that please you. Learn to make decisions about what pleases me. And then allow yourself to grieve. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad that you may feel you lost that time. It's okay to feel sad that you lost those people. All of that is okay. You're allowed to be sad if this happens to you. Listen to what your body's telling you. It does not lie. There are books out there, numerous books, that list what happens to our systems when trauma hits us, short-term and long-term. And our bodies don't lie. Trauma, stress, tension do things to our systems. I have two very good friends that stand like this. They both grew up in very abusive households and they've tried to make themselves. And one of them is 5'10". So she had a lot of work to make herself be small. That has affected both of them with heavy duty arthritis. Yeah. So listen to what your body's saying to you. If your body is saying, don't go there, don't do that, don't say that, don't eat that, listen to what your system is saying. All right. Practice asking for things that you like, both from yourself and from others. So, no, I don't want to go there tonight. I would rather go there tomorrow. I don't like that dress. No, that dress doesn't suit me. I don't like that kind of food. I prefer not to eat that kind of food. But you can also ask things from yourself. What would you like to eat today? What would you like to wear today? And as you practice, it sounds a little less weird the more you practice it. It will help you learn to make decisions. It will help you learn to listen to your system. And then allow yourself some form of therapy. As a psychotherapist, I would love you to be able to see a therapist. I firmly believe in the benefits of psychotherapy. Some people can't do it and some people choose not to simply because of backgrounds. So one of the thoughts, if someone is not able to think of the idea of going to therapy, can afford it, etc. There are other things that you can do. There is journaling, there is art, there are people on social media to follow. Be careful of social media and who you're following, but there are all kinds of support groups and people that you can go and get help with. Oftentimes they're free. And lots of information out there. There are lots of those online who are detailing their cultic experiences. And if you need to, come talk to me and I can give you some good ones from the wide ranges of people, particularly in the former Christian communities where I've known atheists and everything was wrong to I'm still trying to work things through within the church. Type of thing. Okay, so that's me.